Hello. So today I have some training for you. This isn't going to be very long, but I have a lot to get through, so I'm just going to speed through. All right, so this is for you if you've noticed that when your children return from a visit to your co-parent, they are dysregulated. They are having meltdowns. They are screaming the house down, or they internalize. They're very quiet. They're very withdrawn. They're not themselves. So that's one of two things that are happening. So this is for you if you've noticed one of those two things happening, or maybe if you have more than one child, you've noticed this happening to either or both of the children or whichever one. All right, so this is for you if you identify with that. So what I want to share with you is firstly, the fact that they are melting down, the fact that they are lashing out, that is not your fault. I just really want to reiterate that is not your fault. This is because what they're experiencing with the other parent, in the other parent's home, when they are parenting, okay? If that's what you want to call it. How your child decides to cope with this will determine how they come back to you, whether they're dysregulated and screaming the house down, which is heartbreaking to see and witness, or whether they just withdrawn, not their usual sparkly self. They want to go into their room and just kind of decompress. Maybe they're just, they're shutting down. Maybe you can ask them a million questions about how they are and they just give you one-word answers, depending on their age, of course. So you've likely noticed that. It's not easy for children, anyway, to deal with transitions, going from one home to the other. It just isn't. Add a narcissistic, high conflict, abusive, toxic, difficult co-parent to the mix, and it's times 1,000, okay? So this is what I'm talking about here, but it's not your fault, but it is absolutely your responsibility when you know, when you're aware, when you know what you're dealing with, when you can see your children are struggling. That's when they need you the most. That's when you need the tools to be able to support them through this. Okay, because you can guarantee that you may have even brought this up with your co-parent. Have you noticed that X has behaved like this, or do they behave like that with you? If you go down that route, if you have that kind of dynamic with your co-parent, and you've likely heard, no, they're absolutely fine. They're great. Which then makes you feel like, oh, hang on, am I doing something wrong? Or they're only doing that with me? I mean, as you've probably seen around the place, if your children are lashing out with you, they feel safe with you, which is great. But your co-parent will be kind of really digging it in to make you feel like you are not a very good parent. You may even feel that you're not a good parent. You may feel like you're failing your children for whatever reason. But when you know, and then you can start applying tools and strategies to support your children through this. Okay? Let me know in the comments if this is resonating with you. Also, it's common to think that maybe this will improve with age. As my child gets older and they start to understand, this will get better. This doesn't get better with age. If anything, it just manifests very differently. From if the child is 5, and then if they're 12, 13, it just manifests very differently. And if you know anything about scapegoat children, golden children, the forgotten child, you will notice these roles within your children if you have more than one. And they can also switch roles as well. Sometimes they could be the scapegoat child, other periods of times they could be the golden child, sometimes they're the forgotten child. And especially if you have 2 children, you will be able to see one or the other very clearly in how they're treated by your co-parent. Okay? I want you to start noticing these things. Some people are aware of what the scapegoat child is, the golden child and the forgotten child. Some people aren't, but you will know. Okay, the golden child can do no wrong. The golden child seems like they're the favoured one. And they are on the surface. But it doesn't mean that they don't come without the trauma that comes with that. And then if you have the scapegoat child, they have their own set of traumas that they're experiencing. Especially if they're also the forgotten child, just in the corner, the leftovers. Which is very sad to witness, of course. So when we're aware of this, we know what to do. And how to deal with the children, because it does depend on their age as well, and their level of understanding, their developmental stage. Okay, so we really need to know What's going on? What's the dynamic? And your co-parent may be pitting them against each other as well, which is another layer to this. Okay? So really think about that. Why are my children acting out this way? You don't know what happened at the other home. You just know something went down. And how is this manifesting in each of my children? Okay? That's what you need to really focus on and think about, because it's no fun having to deal with your children melting down. It can break your heart to see that and experience that. Or if they're shutting down, especially if they're a bright, sparkly child normally and they're just not themselves. You know something happened and you don't know what, and you can't ask your co-parent because they're not going to tell you. Or, they're not going to be honest. Okay? So the last thing I wanted to cover as well is your child's reaction and how this manifests, how you are noticing this, whether they do lash out and they're dysregulated, or if they internalize and they shut down. It's not really that reaction that is the problem, even though it seems like it. That's on the surface. There's a deeper issue. There's a deeper issue, and it's what they're dealing with and experiencing in the other home, and how conflicted and confused they may be depending on what your co-parent's saying and doing that you don't know, you're not aware of. And your children are not aware of either, because they love that parent and they love you as well. Okay, so there is a deeper issue, and we need to get to the root cause of the issue. That's what the problem is. It's not that they're lashing out. It's not that they're dysregulated. Yes, that needs to be addressed. And it's not that they're internalizing and shutting themselves away. But there is a deeper issue, and this is these coping mechanisms, or these unhealthy coping mechanisms. Okay? That's what I wanted to share with you today. It's not your fault. It's not your fault that they're in this position. It is awful that you have to experience that, but it is your responsibility to do something about it and provide yourself with the tools so that you can support your children with those tools and strategies and hold that space for them. Okay? And as time goes by, it's not going to get fixed with time. It will just manifest differently depending on how your child decides to deal with this. So I get a lot of people thinking that, when they're old enough to understand, they'll get it. Yeah, maybe not, but the damage will be done by then. Okay? So we need to nip this in the bud. We need to provide them with the tools, because your co-parent's not going to be the one to do that. Okay? And it's also how you are seeing this manifest in your life when your children return home. Because I know it's very common. They manage to get back to normal after maybe a day or two, and then you've got a happy household, and they've got to go off again. That's not sustainable, that cycle. These ups and downs for them or for you. Okay, so it's not the reaction, it's not how they're dealing with it that's the issue. It's a deeper issue. It's what they're experiencing. It's how they're conflicted. It's how they're confused because of what your co-parent is saying and doing in the other home, which you have no control over. So I really want you to think about that. I really want you to sit with that and really think about, are my children identifying as the scapegoat child, the golden child, the forgotten child? How is this showing up? How do they deal with transitions? How am I holding space for that? What tools and strategies do I have? Because you've probably heard me say this many times. More mumming is not the answer. More loving them is not the answer. More cuddling and hugs. I mean, it's all great. But you need something more, especially when you have that kind of toxic dynamic in your life. Okay? So this is what I'm going through on Sunday, as in 4 days. I'm running a masterclass called Fearless Transitions, and this is to support your children through the transitions so that they are smoother, so that they're not dysregulated, so that they don't internalize, so that it doesn't take so long for them to get back to, quote unquote, normal. And so that they're not so distraught, maybe having to go away from you, and then when they return back, all completely disheveled and dysregulated. All right, so in that masterclass, it's going to be powerful AF. It's usually about 60 minutes, maybe an hour and a half. Fearless transitions. I'm going to be going through transition rituals, holding space. This is part of my child whisperer framework. Emotional resilience techniques, confidence in handling change, and calm and peaceful transitions. Okay, based on also their age, because a 5-year-old is very different to a 12-year-old, and an 8-year-old is very different to a 17-year-old. Okay? So join me for that. If you want the details on that, comment or DM PPLPL, because this is the first training of a bigger program. But if you just want to have a taste, do this masterclass for Fearless Transitions. I do encourage you to comment or DM PPLPL and follow the details there to join us on Sunday. If you can't make it live, that's absolutely fine. There's a replay. All right. Or you can do the fuller program, which I'm going to be going in deeper on this topic because it is something that comes up. You're out of the clear. You've left. You're divorced. You're living your best life. Now it's time to focus on the children because you're noticing how this is manifesting for them. And this is exactly what we're going to be doing in this masterclass and then the bigger program. All right. That's what I wanted to share with you. Okay. It's not doom and gloom. And it is heartbreaking and distressing to see your children go through this, especially when you've been through very similar, just manifest very differently in our children. But this is your call. This is your call to do something about it. Okay? So comment or DM PPLPL and all those details will be sent through. And I can't wait to see you at this training because it's going to be fucking fire. Excuse my French, but you know, if you know, you know. And we're going to bring it. All right, so take care of yourselves and I will see you very soon. Bye-bye.